This is the grading window tool, the new grading window tool. For those of you all who remember, you know, the active masks and all of that, that is no longer. Active masks are gone. So when you set up your grading tasks, you will no longer see those active mask checkboxes, you know, and the new grading window tool looks like this. So you'll find that under Index, Gradings and Standards, Grading Window, okay? I'm looking on the technical school side database, so you can see what it looks like over there, but it's going to be the same concept on the high school side, just so you know. If you're looking at this, the grading window tool, you're going to get the overview of what your schedules are. So any schedule that you see in red or pink, those are closed schedules from previous closed schedules. They're no longer active. Anything that you see in green is an active schedule. Anything you see in blue is a future schedule, okay? You don't want these dates to overlap. So for the CTE term grade, it looks like, well, this one is ended, but at some point, I don't know when this started, but at some point it looks like there was some overlap there. But now that this one is ended, the overlap shouldn't matter anymore. But now going forward to grading period 2 and grading period 3, there is no overlap there. So everything should be fine with that. So you want to make sure the date ranges do not overlap between grading periods. You don't want to have multiple active for a grading task. For example, you wouldn't have grading period 1 and grading period 2 both active at the same time. That's called an overlap. Same thing over on the high school side. You don't want them overlapping, because if that's happening, then it doesn't know which grading period grades to sync to the high school to what grading period on your side. So it gets confused. It doesn't know. If for some reason, let's say Boone County needs to resync grading period 1 grades, okay? Laura would delete grading period 2 active schedule and create a brand new schedule for grading period 1 and communicate with the high schools the day that this is happening. And then the high school then would go in and update. Question, is it okay if they overlap for CTE term and CTE final grade? Yes, that is okay. So this is only per grading task that that you don't want the overlap. But yes, you can have final grades. Now in this case, it looks like she's got final grades syncing throughout the whole year. Sometimes, let me go down through here and see if I can another school and their settings. See, like this one right here, they don't have a final grade schedule set up yet, and that's okay. They will turn that final grade schedule on whenever they're ready for that final grade schedule. So for right now, and then they don't have any future schedules, and that's okay. They just have it looks like the only active schedule they have right now is that. Okay, so hang on, I've got more questions. Right, Kellen, it is okay to have overlapping date ranges when it comes to the CTE term grade versus the CTE final grade. That is okay. That's not going to bother anything. What's going to bother the database is if you had these overlapping or these overlapping. But having overlapping dates between the terms, between the grading task will not affect anything. Does that help answer your question, Kellen? Or Kelly, is it Kellyanne? I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, awesome. Okay, next question. When you have multiple feeders with different term dates, how do you handle the overlap? That's another good question, David. So sometimes it's going to call for you to go back and forth. And so maybe in your case, the future schedules, having your future schedules is not going to be best for you in that situation. So what you would do is what I would do is I would only turn on the grading period, have an active schedule for the grading period that I want to sync. So let's say that, there's going to be some times if you have multiple feeder schools that you're servicing, let's say on Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm going to sync quarter 1 grades. And then on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I'm going to sync quarter 2 grades. And you might have to do that for a couple of weeks as you deal with your overlap. You might have to go back and forth with what you need to sync. And then in that case, you would tell your high schools that I'm, syncing different quarters or different terms because I'm trying to accommodate your all schedules. So on the days that you're syncing quarter 1 grades, one set of school might get an error message because they're trying to get quarter 2 grades. They just need to be aware that if they get an error message, that it might not necessarily be an error. It just means that you're trying to sync quarter 1 grades to other high schools. This is where the communication comes in. You need to be able to have like a schedule on what you're syncing and when, so that they understand what it is that you're doing. So they know that when they open it up and they look, that if they see an error, well, I see an error, but yesterday was Tuesday. So I know that David was trying to sync quarter 1 grades to the other high schools. So that's why that error message is there. I'll get my fresh grades tonight, Does that make sense, David? Okay. All right. Another question. If the CTE courses are set up as trimester courses and we are on quarters, how do we set that up? Okay. That's pretty much the same method as I was just talking about, Sarah, with David. Is you're probably going to have to, for a while, there's going to, you need to learn what each other's term schedules are. Share your term schedule dates with each other. Know what your term schedule dates are of your high schools, and then they need to know yours. So whenever you go, there might be times when you're going to have to not overlap, you're going to have to go back and forth, just like I was telling David. Does that make sense, Sarah? Okay. Does making an exception for the feeder school to leave quarter 1 open longer, does that work? Okay, good, Sarah. Does making an exception for the feeder school to leave quarter 1 open longer, does that work? Yeah, you can do that. Just make sure you communicate what you're doing. If you're leaving quarter 1 open longer, just make sure you shoot out an email and say, just so you know, my feeder schools, I'm leaving quarter 1 open until, I don't know, whenever you decide to leave it open till. And then that way they know. Okay, Tom, my best advice was what? I'm not sure. It really actually depends on the makeup of your term schedule. Oh, sorry, that's okay. It depends on what your term schedule is versus the term schedules of your feeder high schools. And that's why it's important to know each other's dates, because like you might be a technical school that only services 2 high schools, and your all's period or term schedules are really close. Then you don't have to make any modifications. You just, keep on a schedule much like, what you see right here. Or you might be a technical school who services 10 high schools that are on all different kinds of term schedules and all, and it's going to call for you to do a little bit of back and forth at times, whenever, especially when it gets closer for the terms to end. Okay, so if you're looking for grade addresses, the error. If you're not looking for grades to feed in, ignore, delete the errors. It could be coming from the different feeder school with the different term dates. That's great advice, Tom. If you're looking for grades, errors, if you're not looking for them, ignore or delete the errors. Right. It could be coming from the different feeder schools with different term dates. And that's correct. And this is coming from a high school person who has experienced this. He knows that some days he might get an error message from the KTS data exchange. And I wish there was a different name that we could call it other than error, but anyways, that's just what they did. But he knows sometimes when he receives those, it's not necessarily an error. It's just that the technical school is trying to sync a different term at that point to accommodate his other districts. And so he knows to ignore that and delete that error message, so he don't have to worry about it. Yes, trimesters versus terms. So, question, does the ATC have to have a grading window turned on for the high school to see in-progress grades throughout the term? Yes, it does. So, the grading window serves two purposes on the technical school side. When you turn the grading window on, it allows your teacher to post grades. And two, when you turn the grading window on, it opens up that window. So think of it like a little schoolhouse. You're opening up the schoolhouse window and you're allowing that grade to fly out that window. Okay, so that's what the grading window does on the technical school side. On the high school side, for the KTS data exchange, what it does for you is you're opening up the window to allow that grade that's flying from the technical school side to fly in to your school. And that's what the grading window does on the high school side. So if your grading windows are not open correctly, then the grade is going to fly out of the technical school and it's going to hit the window on the high school side and fall on the ground. And then that's when you're going to get the KTS error message. Okay. Maybe you don't want the grade. Maybe you don't want a fresh grade. And if you don't, then that's okay. But just know that even though you don't want a fresh grade and you're not going to, if you're a high school person, you don't want a fresh grade and you don't turn on your grading window schedule, that you're still going to get an error message that's going to show up. Just letting you know that there's a grade out there that's flying around that's trying to get into your window, but it keeps falling down. Does a high school have to have a window turned on as well? Yeah. So I just answered that. They don't have to, especially when it comes to the final grades. So let's say you're a technical school and you're sending out that final grade. You're a high school, you've already received your final grade. You don't want another final grade. You don't want that overwritten. So you at the high school, you turn off your schedule. And once you turn that schedule off, then you don't receive any more updates. But the database is still trying to trying to fly and those updates into your school. So you're still going to get a message telling you that. You can ignore those messages if you're satisfied that you've gotten the grades that you need on the high school side. We'll finish with recording, must go to staff meeting. Okay, Lavelle, just really quick, I want to make sure everybody understands this about the grading window tool. This is for both sides. There is a bug. When you are setting up a schedule, I want to make sure that if you add a schedule, I'm just going to add an arbitrary schedule real quick. And then I'll select my date range. Okay. And then this is where the bug is. When you get to select grade levels, make sure that all grade levels is selected. Do not select specific grade levels. Don't do that. there is a bug with the KTS data exchange that is making these grades not sync correctly when specific grade levels are selected. So if you're setting up a grading window and you're on the technical school side and you're on the high school side, make sure that you select your all grade levels whenever you're setting up a schedule. Important. It might look like you have everything set up correctly and you're like, what's going on? I'm still getting error message. I'm still not getting grades. And then I'll go and I'll look at the grading window and I'll see that you have specific grade levels selected. And that's the reason why the grades aren't syncing. So make sure that you know, I'm canceling this out because I don't want to modify somebody else's grading window. So make sure you know that if you go to your grading window right now and you see specific grading grade levels indicated below your dates, you'll see grade 9, 10, 11, 12. If you see those listed there, then that means that you are set up incorrectly for this bug. And you need to go in there and modify that schedule to make sure that the all grade levels bullet is selected. Okay? All right. Any other questions pertaining to grading tasks or grading windows? Because I want to hurry up and finish this up in the next 5 minutes. But if you have questions, I definitely want to answer your questions. If you're a high school, I want you to, okay, Bobby, thanks. Okay, I have another question. So just to be clear, if we have one high school and one ATC in our district, the grading winners from both schools should have a date range from first day of the 9 weeks to the last day of the 9 weeks to pick up all grades. In other words, if we selected only the grading window to post the grade, we could be eliminating some grades. Okay, Barbara, I might have to look at your question separately because I'm going to have to look at your school, whatever your school and the technical school that is servicing you, just to kind of get an idea. So if you want to hang on after this is over, then I can go in and kind of look at your question independently because I want to make sure that I'm giving you the right answer. But it's going to take a little longer for me to answer it because I'm going to have to look at a few things. Okay. So, so if I'm turning on quarter 1 again, do I need to turn off quarter 2 for a few days so I do not have them overlapping? Yes, Stacy, absolutely. Yes, because you don't want quarter 1 and quarter 2 both active at the same time. So if you turn quarter 2 off and you turn 1 on again, then you need to make sure that your technical school's got quarter 1 turned on again for the same date range, so they're syncing that grade to you. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, high schools don't create courses from other catalogs. Don't disconnect courses or move them to a different catalog. Don't add more than 1 section per 13-digit course, and don't forget to set up your grading tasks for these courses. And also, additionally, one that I don't have one here, don't forget to set up your grading window correctly. Scheduling suggestions. High schools need to keep in mind that the process of scheduling of these CTE courses are unique and separate from your normal scheduling that you do for regular courses. So you need to always reference that that course setup document for high schools. So you make sure that you're following the right directions because it's going to be a little different than your normal scheduling of regular high school courses. Communication is important, especially now with all this corona stuff going on. You guys aren't in the same, you aren't able to be in the same buildings with each other. So utilize whatever you can to make sure that you communicate well with one another. Emails, Teams meetings, Google Meets, or whatever you all decide to do. But it's important to make sure that you're always on the same page and you know what's going on when it comes to the KTS data exchange, communication is what makes this successful. Okay. Always remember the KTS data exchange webpage has all these resources on it that will help guide you properly, help answer a lot of questions, help you troubleshoot issues. Okay. If you're a high school and you utilize the schedule wizard, you can do the KTS data exchange with the schedule wizard, but you have to use dummy courses. And so this talks about using the use of dummy technical school courses, and do not use the 13-digit codes when it comes to schedule wizards. And then once you have finalized your scheduling, then you can do the roster copy feature to copy students from the dummy courses into the correct 13-digit code courses. Okay, so we got a timeline. Our timeline is between now and January, I'm going to be receiving these scheduling setup forms from your technical schools. They're due by January 8th. January, my goal is to have, by the end of January, to have all of those calendars rolled forward according to your specifications. I might have to go a little bit into the beginning of February, but I'm going to try really hard to get them done in January. January and ongoing, once you are a technical school and you've got an email from me saying that your calendar is created, then you will follow the directions to make sure that your courses are set up correctly, that you are using active, valid courses, that you're not using deprecated courses. You will share a finalized version of your master schedule with your high schools. And then March through July, once you have given that master schedule to your high schools, then it's the high school's hands. The high schools then will follow the instructions to create those courses or modify their rolled forward courses. And then they will notify the technical schools once students are being scheduled into these courses. Okay,